Hello there, and welcome back to EdTech537 Blogging in the Classroom, beginning at week 6. So we are closing in on the end of the semester. Well, I guess not really. We are 6/8 of the way through at the end of this week. So by the end of this week, we will be 75% of the way through, which I guess means at this stage we are 62.3% of the way through if you're watching this on the first day of the week. So I guess that kind of is closing in on the end, but not quite there yet. So looking ahead at this week, if you take a look at the two readings, you'll remember last week one of the readings that we picked, I specifically picked because a lot of the stuff that we were doing to date was more relevant in the K-12 environment. So I specifically picked an item that focused upon the use of blogging in higher education to provide some context for folks that may be in that environment. Well, the two readings this week are sort of straddling the two contexts because they're both looking at teacher education students, pre-service teachers. So these are looking at undergraduate students, but these are undergraduate students that are planning on being teachers. So as you read through the articles, they're sort of speaking to both how they can be used in the higher ed context, but also how they can be used in the K-12 context. And it's kind of interesting because they're two research articles, and they're both looking at sort of the early explorations of blogging in the classroom or blogging in education. So the students that are participating in them are new to blogging, much like yourselves. For that matter, even the faculty that are participating are relatively new to blogging. So that sort of newness and that coming to it, with those sort of initial perceptions of what might be possible and how they might use it, I'm hoping sort of speak to you a little bit and resonate with you a little bit as you read through these two articles. And again, this is probably, now that we're over halfway through, another good time to kind of remind you of the fact that, for the most part, the readings that we've been doing don't directly relate to the blogging that we've been doing. The blogging that we've been doing in terms of the types of entries and even just sort of structuring and creating our blogs in the first place and the tools that we've included to help us along the way with those. That's really been, the application side of things. The readings have tried to provide, some more practical guidance as to how they could be used when you hopefully use these things in the future, once this course is over. The other thing that they've hopefully provided is some sort of academic context to how to go about thinking about and conceptualizing how you're doing your blogging. So again, keeping in mind that the readings and the actual blogging that you're doing are kind of running in parallel tracks. Now, one of the things that I mentioned back, I think it was in week 3 or it might have been in week 2, but early on in the course, one of the things you would have been doing is that I had you read, was a series of readings about generational differences. I think there were 3 in total, if I remember. One by Mark Prensky, one by Jamie McKenzie, and then one by Tom Reeves. Now, we're actually going to use those readings this week, so you might want to go back and skim through what you had read there, because you're going to have 3 activities this week. And this week, unlike the last couple of weeks where you've been blogging sort of different types of entries on your own blog, this week we're going to explore different ways in which you might actually organize blogging. And there are 3 ways in which you're going to sort of do that. The first is that I'm actually going to post a prompt on my blog that you are going to respond to by posting an entry on your blog. So it's going to be similar to what you've been doing to date, except for instead of sort of an open-ended manner, like last week, if I remember correctly, you wrote a commentary entry and a guest blog entry, and you could write them literally about anything you wanted. You just had to, write, a commentary entry. This week, you're going to write a commentary entry again, but it's going to be a commentary entry that is based upon a specific prompt that I give you. And I will be posting the prompt on my blog, Virtual School Meanderings, and you'll be responding to it on your own blog. Another thing that we're going to be doing to give you a sense as to a different way of structuring blogging in your class is that I'm going to be posting a prompt on my blog, and you are going to be responding to that by leaving a comment on my blog. Then the third thing we're going to do is I have created a course blog. You've all seen it. It shows up in your RSS feed, hopefully, because it was one of the ones I posted at the beginning of the semester in that discussion forum where we posted all of our blog addresses so you could add all of those to your RSS feed. There's going to be a prompt on that course blog. I am going to invite you to join that actual course blog, and you are going to post a blog entry on that blog. Right? And if you want to sort of conceptualize this, and the material in Moodle will provide you with examples of this, but if you want to sort of think about if you were blogging with your own students, essentially what you would be doing is, here are 3 ways of going about doing it. That you have a class blog, but each of the students have their own individual blogs. And whenever you post a question or a prompt, the students respond to them on their own blogs. That's the first way, and that's the first thing that you're doing. The second thing is that you have a class blog and the students don't have their own blogs. So when you post a prompt for them, a question for them to respond to, they have to respond to it by leaving a comment on your class blog. So they're not actually able to post entries to the blog. They just leave comments to the specific entry that you've posted. And then the third way, and this is the third thing that you're doing, is essentially you've got a class blog, but every single one of the students are also owners or contributors to that blog so that they can all post entries to that blog. So you're going to kind of see 3 models of how to do this. And the reason we do this now in week 6 as opposed to later in the course, because in terms of looking at the activities, like next week in week 7, you're going to go back to posting different types of entries on your blog. The reason we do this in week 6 is because coming up in week 8, you're going to have to submit a classroom blogging activity, essentially how you plan to use blogging in your classroom coming up sometime next year. This particular week is going to give you sort of 3 different ways in which you might conceptualize how to go about doing that in your class. So I'm going to essentially, with your assistance obviously, or with your participation, model 3 different ways in which you could set up blogging in your classroom. And you can sort of see which ones fit what it is you have in mind for how to go about doing your blogging, so that when you do that classroom blogging activity at the end of the semester, you can sort of decide which of these 3 fit what it is you're looking to accomplish. So that's a quick overview of what we're doing here this week in week 6. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me or give me a quick telephone call or try to catch me on Skype. But as always, email is usually the best way of getting a hold of me. So I look forward to this little shift in how we're going to be blogging this week, and I hope that you find it educational and that it allows you to explore some of the different models in which you might try implementing this come September with your own students.